Good Pod Guide. Good Pod Guide, Pod Guide. This is the Good Pod Guide, where you'll be pleased to hear I do no more singing. Instead, I, Lauren Windle, will guide you through the abundance of podcasts out there to help you hone in on your next obsession. Okay, so I've had another dream where I'm dating someone famous, and today's lucky guy is Chandler from Friends. And I can't really remember what we were doing. I don't remember what dates we went on or who we hung out with, hopefully the other friends, but potentially just my mates. I don't know. It was one of those dreams that I haven't got a full recall in. But what it has flagged up to me is a pattern whereby I know that I've said before that I had a dream that I was dating Diags and Towie and Ben from Below Deck. So in these shows, which are absolutely riddled with people who look like they're the cast of Dream Boys, I'm consistently choosing not the ripped, stacked ladies men, but actually just the funny guys. And I really rate Dream Me for her taste in men, because I feel like ultimately that criteria for picking a partner is more likely to end in a happy ending. So I'm okay with it. Anyway, enough about me. Let's talk about today's podcast. In a great pod guide. Oh my gosh, that is not the name of this podcast. In a good pod guide first, I am reviewing a podcast by a guy who I have reviewed twice already. That's right. It's Robert Evans, the guy who did Behind the Bastards and Behind the Police. So look, Robbie, if you're listening, I'm be really happy to discuss sponsorship deals with you and happy to accept bribes and hear about any other podcasts that you're doing. So today's is It Could Happen Here. This is a podcast that explores what would happen if a scary and seemingly unlikely event were to occur. And he looks at the feasibility of that event and what could lead to it and how it would play out and what the aftermath would be. So in theory, he takes a different event and dedicates one season to each. In practice, he's actually only done one season at the moment. I don't know if there are plans to do another. And that focused on the possibility of civil war in the US. And let me tell you, this is the real horror story. Forget all your ghosts and witches and zombies. This is some scary stuff. The episodes talk you through how civil war could happen, starting with, reasonably everyday protests that we are familiar with seeing or even attending. But then it shows how they could escalate. One thing he said was that people who are in countries where civil war has already broken out always say that they're just amazed by how quickly things turned. So he explores how that could happen in the States. The first two episodes look at the possible scenario for the breakout of the Civil War, one with a right-wing uprising and the other with a left-wing uprising. It was recorded in 2019 during the Trump administration, but before the 2020 election had taken place. In the episode where he talks about the right-wing uprising, he details how Trump could potentially incite violence in his followers if he were to lose that 2020 election. And actually, the predictions he made were eerily close to how the situation actually played out a year or so later. He also draws compelling and terrifying parallels between Nazi propaganda in World War II and the current rhetoric directed towards Muslims by some extremists in the States. The story that came from the Nazis was that Jews could never be loyal to Germany because they would always put Judaism first. And then he played a clip of a extremist in the States announcing to some sort of rally that Muslims can't be loyal to America for exactly the same reason, which was actually really harrowing. He also warns against the use of language comparing immigrants to vermin and viruses, which is something that apparently has increased in recent years, particularly by right-wing politicians. And he detailed things that everyone can do to help slowly edge the country back from danger and madness and societal collapse, which he argues could be in the near future. Plus, he says what you could do to prepare for this. And he actually recommends buying at least a 1-month supply of emergency food. And apparently Amazon has many different bundles you can buy and ranges you can try. And he says which ones taste the best. I have to say that to me felt a bit like zombie apocalypse. But when he spoke about it, it started to feel a bit less crazy. There are 10 episodes and each is around 30 minutes. And listen, I like this guy, as you've probably noticed, because I keep reviewing his podcast. I particularly like his mini-series like this one and Behind the Police. It's American politics. So if you're not into that as a topic, then definitely leave it. But if you are, then I really rate this. In the next episode, we are well and truly in my comfort zone as we discuss The Constant, a podcast all about getting things wrong. You can get more info on the show online at www.goodpodguide.com. You can also follow us at Good Pod Guide on Instagram and Twitter.